Hi everyone, welcome to Another Simplifier. This is where I simplify things for you for easier and better understanding. Today I want to do a quick and simple analysis on why I always say that Ruto is a one-term president. I'll support my claims with facts and figures, and of course, figures don't lie. In my analysis, I'll use the 2022 IEBC voter register as a point of reference and their 2027 new voter registration projections. They are projecting to have 5.7 new voters in their register come 2027. Importantly, I'll make several assumptions to guide my analysis. This assumption is as follows. 1. We shall have peaceful election. There will be no rigging. No bribery will be witnessed to sway voters to vote in a particular direction. People will vote on tribal lines or affiliations, which is always the case. Opposition will field one candidate. Then voter turnout will be at 80%. Then number 7, new IBC voter registration will be at 5.7 million new voters. That's according to their projections. Then the KK, the Kenya Kwanza candidate, and the opposition candidate will share the portion of other tribes and new voters at the ratio of 3:2. We assume the government will put in deliberate measures to ensure that they get the new voters, and therefore they'll have a higher ratio. Therefore, I decided to give them a ratio of 3 against the opposition 2. So they'll share 60-40% of the votes. So those are the assumptions I made to ensure that I achieve my objective of projecting who will come victorious come 2027 general election. So let's go down the lane to see how this pans out. In 2022, this is how the IBC voter register looked like in terms of tribe composition and what percentage it constituted to the total number of voters in the country. First, Gema 35%, Luo community 13%, Luya Nation 12.8%, Kalenjin community 11.7%, Kamba Nation 11.2%, Abagusi 5%, Somali community 4.3%, other small tribes, that's Taita, Hindi, Masai, Digo, Mijikenda, Giriama, Turkana, and others constituted 7% to the total percent, which gives us 100%. So this is how the IBC register looked like, and then the percentages each community contributed to the total tally. So this is the basis under which we are going to do our analysis. Of course, we don't expect everyone who will register to vote in 2027. Therefore, I subjected these numbers to an average of 80% voter turnout. And the resultant effect is that the percentages came down as follows. For Gema community, from 35 to 28%. Luo community from 13% to 10.4%, Luya community from 12.8% to 10.24%, Kalenjin community from 11.7% to 9.37%, for Kamba Nation from 11.2% to 8.96%, the Abagusi community from 5% to 4%, the Somali community from 4.3% to 3.44%, other smaller tribes from 7% to 5.60%. This gives us an 80% voter turnout. That's the total. If you sum them, it comes to 80%. So this is how when I subjected the figures to an 80% voter turnout, these are the values we get. Therefore, we are going to use this in our analysis. So we want to conduct an hypothetical voting. In my hypothetical voting analysis based on tribal arithmetic voting patterns and tribal alignments, we want to look at how things will pan out come 2027 in respect to the tribal affiliation and association. Of course, we all know that election in this country is merely a tribal census, and that's why you see our leaders roaming around the country looking to form formidable alliances. Definitely, we expect other parameters to come into place, which are highlighted there. And therefore, let's start with the Kenya Kwanza candidate. Of course, that will be Ruto, the current president, and see how he will fare in this ethnic census we call election. For the Kenya Kwanza Alliance candidate, most definitely it will be William Samoei Ruto, the current president, and we expect 3 communities, Kalenjin, Luo, and Somalis, to vote to the man. And I'll start with Kalenjin. Kalenjins vote, it is expected that they'll vote 9.36, that's 100% of the 80% voter turnout. Luos 10.4 because of Baba, and of course Kalenjin because Ruto is their son. And then Somalis 3.44, and because of Somalis, Ruto has soft support for them. He removed the vetting process of the ID, so they'll definitely vote for him so that they can get more goodies from the president. Then number 4, Kamba. It is projected that 2% of the Kamba community will vote for the Kenya Kwanza candidate, and this is because of the likes of Mutua being in the cabinet and also the proximity to Nairobi. The Luya, we project that we'll have a 50-50 sharing of votes because of Musalia and Tangula, and then the Tawe movement because of Natembea, so at 5.12%. Kisii 1% will go to Kenya Kwanza because of Osoro. And then Gema, we project that 1% because of Ichungo will go to Kenya Kwanza. And then other small tribes like the Giriama, the Pokot, the Hindi, 60% of them will vote for the Kenya Kwanza, and therefore at a rate of 3.36%. Then new voters, we also project that 60% of the new voters will vote for the Kenya Kwanza candidate because of the various programs the incumbent is trying to do to woo them into voting for them. And therefore a total of 36.16 for the Kenya Kwanza candidate. We now move to the opposition candidate, and I'm voting for Dr. Fred Matiang'i to be the flag bearer of the opposition. Here we expect 3 major tribes, majorly the Gema because of the Wamunyoro, and then because Matiang'i will be the flag bearer, we expect the Kisis and also the Kamba Nation that will be the major tribes that will be voting for the opposition. And therefore from Gema we expect 27%, 1% went to the KK candidate. The Luya Nation 50%, therefore 5.1% comes to the opposition. Kisii community 3%, 1% went to the Kenya Kwanza candidate. The Kamba Nation 2% went to KK candidate, and therefore they remain at 6.96%. Then other small tribes, 40% of the total number, which stands at 2.24%. And then new voters, 40%, which stands at 0.32%. This gives us a total of 44.64. So this is how the two candidates, the Kenya Kwanza and the opposition, will fare come 2027. Therefore, we want to see what are the implications of these figures. Therefore, we want to go into the analysis phase so that we can interrogate these figures so that you can understand why I'm saying that Ruto is a one-term president. We move to analysis. In 2022 general elections, we had a total of 22.3 million voters, and then projected new voters, according to the IBC, is at 5.7 million. Therefore, a total of 28 million voters is expected in 2027 general election. And therefore, normally when we have registered, not all of them go to vote. So in my analysis, I've taken an average of 80% voter turnout, and therefore we want to subject these 28 million voters to the 80% voter turnout. And therefore, you take 28 million multiplied by 80%, we get 22.4 million voters. So these are the people that are expected to vote. So now we want to analyze now the numbers. Now Kenya Kwanza got 36.16%, then opposition got 44.64%. Now there is a margin. If you do the total, there is a margin of 0.8%. So that accounts for, or is attributed to spoiled votes and stray ballots. So we want to see the difference between, what does this mean? The difference between Kenya Kwanza and opposition leader. So you subtract the two, you get 8.48 in favor of the opposition candidate. So what does this figure mean to us? Now, as I said earlier, that we got a figure of 22.4 million voters. That is the number of voters expected to cast their vote. And therefore, we want to get 8% of that number. And therefore, you do 22.4 million times 8.48%, which you get 1.899520 votes, which is roughly 1.9 million votes. So what does this 1.9 million vote mean to us? So it simply means that this is the margin that we are going to have between the Kenya Kwanza presidential candidate and the opposition candidate. Since the opposition candidate has the higher percentage, therefore it means the opposition candidate will beat the Kenya Kwanza candidate by a margin of 1.9 million votes come 2027 general elections. Despite having that figure of 1.9 million votes in favor of the opposition candidate, however, I have some reservation which is going to tilt. How the election result would be come 2027. One of the factors is, and this note that this can favor the opposition or the incumbent regime. So one of the factors is Gen Z factor. So whatever Gen Z factor will vote, whoever they will vote in favor of, he will carry the day. Uhuru factor, whoever he supports will have an impact on the results. And then frustration and anger of the voters. If they come to vote with the anger, then it will affect the incumbent. Then unfulfilled promise definitely is going to affect the current regime. Harsh economic times, especially the payslip holders, if they come and vote, they vote to punish the current regime. And then lastly, lack of trust, of course, with this current regime. And then to my conclusion, drawing from this analysis with the figures obtained and the other factors held constant, I can firmly confirm or conclude that the opposition candidate will comfortably beat the Kenya Kwanza Alliance candidate, who is Ruto, and therefore I maintain that Ruto will be a one-term president. Otherwise, vote wisely come 2027. Thank you so much. See you next time. Bye-bye. Adios.